Hi everyone, welcome to week 7. Getting into the nitty-gritty end where we start to put it all together. And you guys are going to work through how we're going to make a plan using all the stuff we've learned for our next lot of exams or assessments. Some of you, it's the end of term 4, so week 8 or 9. Others, you don't have anything left this term. Some senior students may not have anything to do this term. And so year 11 students, it's your senior students finish in 2 weeks. So we'll learn how to put everything together into some kind of cohesive plan. So, who's a chronic negative Nancy when it comes to their exam study? If you go into your study in the wrong mindset, you're not going to do well. If you go in with the assumption that I'm going to do the best that I can with the tools that I have, and that's all that matters, then you can't go wrong. Now, this comes from an understanding of where your strengths and weaknesses are. Most people, there is a kind of buzz that comes with setting unrealistic goals. So I'm going to go from a B, I'm going to go from a C- to an A+ in 8 weeks. You get a dopamine rush, a rush of feel-good hormones. But if you've gone from, if you're sitting on a D for maths and you're not mathematically minded, where should your next goal be for math? Some people will say, well, set outrageous goals, and even if you miss them, you'll still land somewhere better than where you are. That just doesn't work for this. It works for a lot of other things, but if you set yourself up for failure by not being realistic, you're doing yourself a really big disservice. So Kelly said, if you're sitting on a D for a subject, your next goal should be a C, then a B, then an A. That's not unachievable. I had a student, year 10 general maths, last exams at the end of term 2, E-, got 7%. He said he wanted to get an A and get an A type 99 in a couple of years. And I had to bring him back to reality and say, well, that's maybe achievable in over a couple of years. But you can't have E- and then your other goalpost is A+, 99.95 A type getting into medicine. Because there's nothing in between those points to gauge how you're going. So I said, well, let's get to a C-. 8 weeks later, gets to a C-, from E-. So from 7% to 49% or 48%. He was then given the opportunity to do a supplementary exam out of 20 marks. Got 18 out of 20. So he has gone from virtually not even answering more than a couple of questions, guessing a couple of questions right in multiple choice too, in 14 weeks, getting his mark up to a B+ overall. Another student going from 45% to 70% over the term and a half. And we were able to do that by setting realistic goals and quantifiable goals. There's no point, okay, in 20 weeks you have your next exam. If you don't set yourself any checkpoints on the way, then how do you know if you're improving? So I want to go from an E, okay, let's go to D. I know that seems strange to make your next goal to still be failing. But if you try to go from an E to a C like that, you're going to try and do too much. You're going to try and study absolutely everything. And really, your focus should not be on improving your grade. It should be on improving your understanding of the content, which will then improve your grade. But just cramming more information into your head, is that going to improve your grade? Do you think just if you're sitting on a D or an E, cramming more information into your brain is going to do anything? Or do you think it's more of an issue of understanding and answering exam questions and learning how to study? These are the basic concepts that you need to understand before you can improve your mark. The difference between an A and a B generally isn't knowledge. It's applying it and understanding how what you're studying fits in with the overall context. And like I said last week, I try to provide context with everything that I teach. Sometimes even some weird stuff. It doesn't make any sense. So, positivity, I can do this, I'm going to do this. So, if you're not good at sitting there studying for 6 hours, should you try and plan to study for 6 hours? Or would you be better off doing 12 half-an-hour blocks? Yeah. If it takes you a while to get going, don't plan for half an hour. Plan an hour or 2 hours. Everyone's different, but this is about you guys making a realistic plan based on you using what we've gone through in the last 6 weeks. And there's a few more things that I've added in today as well, so you can use those. And the realistic goals are so important. Who set lofty, massive goals, then realize halfway through doing it, there's no way they can do it. Because despite what people say, you can do anything, sometimes you can't. Sometimes that end goal will take you 5 times longer than you think. And that's okay. You're not defined by that. If it takes you longer than everyone else to understand something, that is okay. As long as you understand that that's how your brain works. So if you're sitting on an E, the next goal should be get to a D and then a C. Not going from E to A. Because the moment you don't go from E to A, what happens if you then get a C instead of an A? Do you know hoping for? Think you're going to put any more effort in after that, or you're just going to give up? And that's where the positivity. Holy moly, I've gone from an E to a D. I have improved. Do you know how much work it takes to go from an E to a D? A lot. A lot of work. And then even more from a D to a C. To go from a B to an A often isn't as much work as going from a D to a C. Because to go from a B to an A is not about knowledge, it's about understanding and applying the knowledge. So, okay. Another kind of rant with that. Realistic goals. Everybody gets, we've seen the people on Facebook that every month they have a new life goal and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And then 2 weeks later, they've given up on it. Do you know why people come out with these outrageous goals? Because it makes you feel good. It gives you a dopamine rush. And then you can dissociate from the reality of your situation. So if someone goes, I'm going to go from an E to an A, they get the feel-good factor, and then they're in the mindset that they're going to get an A. They don't get an A, they might get a D or a C. Despite the fact that they've improved, they failed. So this is what I mean about setting goalposts. Your 5-year plan might be to, okay, I've just passing in grade 7, but by the end of grade 12, I want to get into medicine. That's fine to have a long-term plan with a goal. But inside that, there needs to be quantifiable goalposts along the way. Okay. Who thinks procrastination is a bad thing? Anyone? What causes procrastination, do you think? Anxiety is what causes procrastination. It is much easier to cure your anxiety by just not doing it. Or the classic, I'll just do it tomorrow. Brilliant. I'm not anxious anymore because that's tomorrow's problem. What happens tomorrow? You feel even more anxious about it. And then you put it off more, and then you put it off more, and then all of a sudden it's 4 a.m. the day it's due, and you're sat there rocking back and forth, trying to figure out the answer to the question. Maybe that's just me. It was definitely me a lot of times that year. Now, if you know that you're a procrastinator, you know that for half an hour out of every hour you're going to be sat there checking Facebook. Put it into your schedule. Because if it's in your schedule, you're not stressing out about the fact that you're procrastinating. Okay, I have made time for me to be sat here stressing. So for every hour, if you know you're going to do half an hour procrastinating, accept it. Try and fix it. But for the short term, try and accept it. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to start this last minute. So make a plan around the fact that you will procrastinate. If you don't allow for procrastination time, what is that going to do to your times? It's going to shorten the amount of time, which is going to make you stress more and then procrastinate more, and then you go down this horrible road. Who said, I'm going to study 2 hours a week, but they've actually only studied for 1 hour, even procrastinated, got to their week before their exam, and then started stressing hard because they realized they wasted a lot of time. If you schedule it into your schedule, then it doesn't seem like you're wasting time. Okay, I know that before every session, I'm going to waste half an hour, or 15 minutes on Facebook. 15 minutes of Facebook time before you start. It should be in your plan. I know it sounds weird, but I'm not saying procrastination should happen, but I'm also realistic that it probably will happen. If you're anything like me, my mum, who gave it the procrastination gene to me, then you know it's going to happen. So you just have to be realistic about your study schedule. If you only put aside half an hour a week, but you know half that time is going to be, then you're wasting your time. You might as well not even make a plan. So day off. Who has at least one day where they don't do any school? So yeah, I'm discovering the benefits. I used to finish at 2 o'clock on Saturdays, and I would start again at 4 o'clock on Sundays. But that left me in such a state by Monday morning at 6 a.m. when I had to get up, that I then didn't recover until the next weekend. So now it's Sunday, the entire Sunday, aside from an hour before bed of getting everything ready. So I have 2 o'clock Saturday till 8 o'clock on Sunday, maybe 7 o'clock on Sunday. Free. No business, no work, no teaching. And it just gives you that, you just switch off enough. It takes me most of Saturday to switch off from work. Then I wake up Sunday morning, I get up, I'm refreshed, ready to go by Monday. Well, I will be this week, so the first week I've done it. So I recognize that in order to study, effectively I had to have some time away from it. We need to disengage from study. Sitting there 7 days a week, cramming as much into your schedule is probably just as bad as barely studying. Who loves practice exams? So some people love them and some people hate them. So yeah, Damon says for maths, they're really helpful. But if you've listened to me rant about practice exams, what's the biggest problem with them? What do people study? So if you're in your senior year, your senior exams are all available online from the previous years. You can get practice exams and practice questions from your teacher. The problem with this is people study how to answer the question, that exact question. And it's so frustrating because there's no way that you're going to get the same question in the practice exam in your exam, or a question that's anything like practice exam. So it's great for your ego, especially if you get given the answers to the practice questions, because you just sit there and you write that question out over and over and over and over and over. Look how smart I am. I can answer this really complicated question. The question gets flipped on its head for exams. You sat there going, what does that mean? So, practice exams are a great tool because they teach you what kind of questions you're going to ask. So for chemistry, it'll teach you what kind of maths you might need to learn. For maths, it will teach you possibly how the exam will be laid out. And this is another important thing. Remember how I said quantifiable goalposts in between your here and what your goal is. So do the practice question at the practice exam at the very beginning. And then look at it. Don't mark it. Don't need to know what the answers are. You know if you knew the answer or not. When you look at an exam, you know instantly whether you can answer that question. So do it at the very beginning and put it away. Don't look at it again. Study the topics that you're given to study. Then attempt the practice exam again in the middle. Again, compare what you knew and what you were confident with in the middle. If you're not any more confident than you were in the beginning, do you think you should change the way you're studying or get some help? The biggest problem, and that we're seeing it with the seniors now. Oh, we did our practice exam this week or last week. Their exams are 2 weeks away. Can you help us? And it's like, yeah, I can. But why wasn't this practice exam done 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago? Why didn't you have a look through the practice exams that are available online and see what you're supposed to know? If you look at a practice exam and you don't know how to answer it, go to your teacher and ask. Don't ask them to answer the question for you or give you the answers, but how they would answer it and what's expected of that question. If you don't know any more than you did after 6 weeks of studying, or 4 weeks of studying, or however long this middle point is going to be, don't pig-headedly just plow. Otherwise, by the time you get to the end, you won't know any more than you did at the very beginning. That's when you need to ask for help. So from a tutor, from your teachers, from the internet, from your peers. You may just not be studying things in the correct way. And that's when a little bit of doing this kind of course over 10 weeks allows you to reflect on what you're doing. That's all I hope. I'm not trying to teach you how to be the best students ever, but when something isn't working, you can reflect inwards and go, what am I doing that isn't working? So, plan. Anyone got any kind of plan for their upcoming exams? So year 11 students probably won't have any exams because they're doing unit 3 now. So that all their exams will be next year. hopefully in January, you'll know roughly when your exams are, usually the end of term. You can come up with some kind of plan. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So you need to have some kind of plan in place. And that's not like I'm going to study every single day on Tuesday at 3:30 to 3:57. Then I'm going to have a drinks break. You can. But just having a rough outline of what you're going to do. How much time am I going to dedicate? How many days a week am I going to dedicate? Okay. Why is positivity important? Why is it better to be positive than a negative Nelly? Is anything in life linear? Does anything happen, any kind of growth happen in a perfectly straight line? Or does it go like this? If you have a positive mindset and you're going up and then, you go down a little bit, that positive mindset will allow you to come back up. I'm not talking like the world is amazing, everything is great, I'm perfectly okay, everything's fine. That's delusional. But positive mindset is, yes, here's where I am now, here's where I want to be, top here. I know that's not going to be a straight line. Eventually you will get to the end point, but you have to try and stay positive. The amount of days where I've just got up and walked out of the office because everything, in my mind, everything had gone wrong with the business and it wasn't going to work. And what was the point of this? No one cares. And what do we tend to focus on? Do we focus on the positive things or the one negative thing that might happen? Yeah, we focus on the negative. And if you're already in a negative mindset, you're just going to focus on the negative. That's it. If you have, like I said, I'm not talking about being annoying and delusionally happy and pretending everything is okay. Things can be bad. That is okay. But you need to have some kind of positivity to rebound from those drops. It will not be linear. You will have peaks and troughs. And that is a normal part of life. Not being delusional. That is not normal. Okay. This is a big one. And you see it all the time. People study what they're good at. What does this make us feel? This makes us feel good, right? Look how smart I am. But at the end of the day, all that's going to do is stroke your ego and not your marks. Pick the thing you hate the most and you find the hardest. Study it until your eyes bleed. The only way to make something easy is to understand. A lot of the time in maths and science, you study things over and over until they sink in, until you understand. Maths, science, and chemistry, physics especially, you do things over and over until it becomes second nature. Do not study what you're good at. If you're already good at it, you don't need to study it. If you're an A in 20% of the content and an E in everything else, what's the point of studying the A? That isn't going to go down if you know more of the other stuff. Usually having an understanding of the whole topic will bring your marks up, not the other way around. Okay. So realistic goals, I think I've ranted a bit about this anyway. Incremental steps. You have to be realistic. you can go from an E- to an A. You just have to be realistic about the time frame. If you went to the gym with a personal trainer for 1 hour a week, then the rest of the time you ate cheeseburgers and nothing else. Would you blame the personal trainer for being overweight? No. Well, most people, some people. But if you go to your, if you don't do anything at school, you do 1 hour of study a week or 1 hour of tutoring a week, and you don't improve, who's to blame? Goals should be based off how much work you're willing to put in. You want to go to an A, then you got to work for it. That's not going to happen in 1 hour a week. That happens in 5 or 6 hours a week. And then using, your classroom session with your teachers. If you expect your teachers to teach you everything you need to know in your classes at school, you are very wrong. Your teacher has to teach to the entire class in, 50 minutes? Hour and a half, maybe, at the very most. You're looking to get a really good understanding of everything, especially in senior subjects like biology. They are massive subjects. The teacher gives you a rough overview in the classroom. They might read through a PowerPoint slide. There's a whole lot more information you need to know than what you get given in class. So if you want to go from an E- to an A in a term, your level of work has to reflect that goal. Otherwise, you're just stroking your ego and saying, I'm going to get an A and wanting to feel good. I am not your teacher, so I get to be really blunt with you. So the more effort you put in, the more you get back. So who gets to week 9, goes to study for their exam and realizes their notes are a shambles? So create your folder, your whatever you want to do to organize your notes in week 1, and then follow that through to week 9. Don't get to week 9 and then try to organize your notes, because you're going to waste hours and hours that you could have spent studying organizing your notes. So chronological order, this is week 1, this is week 9. In between. If you're doing something like chemistry, biology, physics, then you need to understand what's happened in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to understand what's happened in week 9. So that helps as well, that you can study it in a logical, chronological order. So don't mix your subjects up together. That should be fairly obvious for you guys. You guys are smart enough to know that. So make them pretty colors. So chemistry is black. Oh, horrible, horrible subject as it is. Biology is green because it's plants. That kind of thing. To me, seniors, I've asked in the last 2 weeks about when their exams are, and they have absolutely no idea. So when your exam schedule is released, stick it on your forehead backwards, so every time you look in the mirror, you can see it. And that also stops you from studying the wrong thing. So if one of your exams on Tuesday, one's on the Wednesday, you don't spend Monday studying or revising for the wrong exam, if that's what you're going to do. Happens all the time. You show up, someone shows up for an exam and they got the time right, but it was the wrong subject. Do you think you're in a very good place then to take that exam? Time management. So some people can't study at night. Some people study better in the morning. Everyone has a different sweet spot. Some learn at school, some can't learn at school. Some learn at home, some can't learn at home. You just have to understand what works best for you. Another big one is other activities, sport, dance, swimming, whatever you do. And this comes down to your goals. If you're wanting to go from an E- to an A, then studying has to be your 100% priority. If you're on a C average and you want to stay at a C average, then your school's probably not as high a priority as the other things you enjoy doing. But it's all about balancing. If you get rid of all your extracurriculars because I need to study, then you're going to be miserable and probably not study as much, or not get as much out of your study. So, how many exams do I have? If I have 6 hours a week and I have 6 exams, should I just do 1 hour a week on each of them? So it is a good plan, but also it depends on how much you're struggling with the subject. So sometimes you might do an hour and a half of one subject and half an hour of the other. Just depends on what you have. Again, be realistic. The dopamine release of saying, I'm going to study 20 hours a week, ace absolutely everything, works great until you don't do it. The first week when you only get 5 hours done, and then you just crash and burn because you haven't done what you set out to achieve, which was to study for 20 hours a week. Start with 5, start with 1, get 1 hour solid study done, increase it by an hour each week or 2 hours each week until you find something you can realistically continue. So don't, this is my most frustrating thing ever. Don't just read. The PowerPoints from your teacher are a very broad overview of what you need to understand. Sometimes there won't be. Sometimes not every piece of information you need to know. But generally speaking, they are a broad overview, and the teacher will speak words over the top of them. So students learn 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, and 50% of what they see and they hear together. 70% of what is discussed with others. So peer-based learning, so discussing topics, putting them into context, having conversations with people about them. 80% of what you experience personally is what you remember. So putting things into context based on your personal experience. So you're learning about diabetes or heart disease, go and find someone in your family or friends that has it and ask them about it, because you will remember it. And almost all of what you teach to someone else is remembered. So find your parents, you're probably gonna hate me for this, but find your parents and just teach them stuff that you're learning. Once I teach someone something, I never forget it. I can teach stuff, virtually the entire 11, 12 chemistry curriculum out of my head. I don't need PowerPoint slides. Very rarely need PowerPoint slides for anything science and maths related. Because once I've taught it, it's there. And once you teach it a couple of times, it's just committed permanently to your memory. So you draw, listen, read, write, teach, discuss, stick it on your forehead backwards so that you can see it every time you see your reflection. Don't just stick with what you know. Throw yourself out of your comfort zone. So don't try and study 15 hours a day. Mostly because it's not efficient and it won't work, but mostly because most people cannot study more than 3 to 4 hours a day. So break it up into topic by topic chunks. Today, I'm going to revise these topics. That also means that there's not a time constraint. I know I've said break it up into 15, 30-minute chunks, but another way to do it is to break it up into topics. I'm going to learn this. So if you learn it faster and you understand it faster, you're done. You get a little reward. If it takes a bit longer, you're not sat there going, oh, I'm so dumb. Why is this taking me so long? I only wanted to do an hour. And that is, again, that sort of negative. It's going to take you further down that drop when it happens. this is what I'm talking about, context. I've been over it before, but every time you're studying in this, provide some context to go along with it. Textbooks are an outdated dinosaur of the education world. Who has genuinely read through their textbook with their overcomplicated explanations and genuinely then gone and perfectly understood something, compared to, say, watching a YouTube video? Yeah. Literally no one in history. I'm sure there is, but textbooks are expensive paperweights, in my opinion. Anything that you can find in a textbook, you can find on the internet, usually explained in a better way. Some people like Izzy work better from textbooks. But I guarantee you, I could give you a textbook passage to revise, and then I'd do an hour on my whiteboard. The hour on the whiteboard would, I think, work better than revising from a textbook. So the thing to remember here is everyone's different. It's not a 100% approach. Some people work, like I said, some people can read something and it's immediately committed to memory. They're very lucky people. Other people need different methods that aren't just reading a page with 500 words on there. So another little study method, survey. So don't, this frustrates me. So don't try and just understand this little piece of the puzzle. Try to understand it in the whole picture of what you're studying. Answer questions, ask questions. So answer your practice exams, but then ask questions about it. When you start to investigate things, then you start to open up your brain, and you investigate things and you find out information. That information sticks. So my problem with textbooks is there's so many words on each page that to read a chapter would take you to properly read it without just reading the words. Remember that listening versus reading. You can get audiobooks for your textbooks as well, so you can listen to them as you're reading them. So recite, make sure you understand, then review. So that's that, doing a practice exam, the beginning, in the middle, and then at the end, to gauge how you're going. So I'm not really a Zen zone kind of person. My desk is a mess. Best of times, kind of scatty, kind of like my brain. But some people need organization on their desk, and that's fine as well. So again, just kind of going over a few things now that I've gone through before. Don't use a computer to study. Don't read something and think that you've mastered it. Don't be able to recite something and think that you understand it. Being able to recite something is very different from understanding. So being able to understanding something is very much about how to apply that knowledge. Simply having the knowledge in your brain does not make understanding. So don't just use your textbook. Use YouTube, use PowerPoints, use internet explanations, talk to your peers, teach people about stuff. Make sure you're covering all bases. Don't do all-nighters. By about midnight, your brain is toast. The only thing keeping you awake is anxiety and caffeine. So you can plan for the average, not the average, but the very rare all-nighter session when you might be doing an assignment where you want to get ahead on an assignment. But for exam study, when you're trying to retain information, do not do all-nighters. And if you don't want to study, then don't. If you're sat there going, I can't be bothered, then just don't do it. If you try and force yourself to study when you really don't want to, you're only going to have a negative effect. Go away for an hour. Do something else. You might then find an hour later, oh yeah, cool, let's go study. So for your next exam, I want you guys to come up with a plan. Using this framework that we've done, I just put there, so all those things, plus all the stuff we've learned before. And then we'll go through it next week and we'll start looking at some more just, there's information, how do I get it into my brain? So the pure study techniques, more so than looking at the entire process, like we have been for the last 7 weeks. So thank you for coming, everybody, and listening to my ramblings.